I'm going to show you how to build this amazing hero banner. Yeah, the left-hand side looks pretty boring and standard, but look at the right-hand side. No, that is not all one image. They are separate components, containers, grid. We've got spacers in there. We're using a lot of border radii. We've got some clever CSS as well for how we ensured the text editor. This is all the text editor, right? That background is the text editor, and we made sure we centralized it. And no, you can't just do that with a bit of flex. You got to add in a little bit of code and stuff, but it's a tiny bit of code. I'm going to show you how to do this, and this can be really versatile because you could swap these images out to show web design. It doesn't have to be people, right? And you can change your wording as well. And by the way, if you're part of the Elementor website course, link is in the video description, you can get this entire template as part of the course. So you can go and download it. But if you haven't got that course and you want to know how I built it, keep watching. Let's get started. I've already cheated by already setting some bits up because I didn't want to waste too much time, because I really want to focus on what we're going to do on the right-hand side of the screen, because that's where it gets really interesting. So I'm just going to very quickly talk you through what we have. We have a parent container, okay? The parent container contains two child containers, child 1 and child 2. The parent container is a flex box. It is a boxed width of 1140. I'm just going to clear out the height for a moment, and I'll clarify that in a moment. The advanced tab, we only have 20 on the right and left in terms of padding. So when we get to tablet and mobile, it stops it being right butt up against the side of the screen. So Flexbox boxed 1140, and it is set as a row. Inside of there, we have two child containers. Now, child container 2 is nothing more than a full width, which is set at 50%. It is set as a row, and it has the wrap also enabled. Because we're going to add in quite a lot of things, and I want it to wrap in a funky, nice way. So it is full width, 50%, and we've got row, and we've got some wrap going on there. Okay, that's pretty important. Advanced tab 00 for the margin and padding. Now, child 1 is exactly the same thing, except this is just vertical. Okay, we don't have any other wrap going on or anything like that. It's just a very simple Flexbox full width, 50%. Always set your child containers to be full width if they're inside another container. If you do boxed width, it won't look how you think it should look, because you want it to be full width inside of the parent container, and then you can start to define on the width of it. And this is just a 00 as well. Now, inside of here, we have a heading, and you can see we've got the wording and the color. We have a text editor, and we have a button. Now, this heading, the important bit is that we are using a clamp calculation formula in here. There will be a link in the video. All I did was ensure the root HTML was 16. My minimum size is 380. My maximum is 1100, not 1140, 1100. And I then said for the desktop, I want you to go between 2 on, let me get my value in. I can't, I'm in the wrong place. Put a 2 in for the mobile and put a 3 in for the desktop. And then I copy that formula over. When you copy the formula over, get rid of the semicolon and the curly bracket at the end. And then everything in front of the word clamp, get rid of that. And then when I got over to my text, I did not actually pop in a formula for this, because this is quite happily just being, oh no, I did put a formula, sorry. I did do a formula on that. So for the mobile, it was a 1. And on the desktop, it was a 1.2. You copy the formula over, you get rid of the semicolon and curly bracket at the end, and everything before the word clamp. Make sure that whenever you do this, you do it on the desktop. You don't do it in the tablet or the mobile. Make sure you're doing on the desktop, and make sure the mobile is blank when you do it. You go and pop that in. It just means that when you do like shrink down, it will do this on the sides. I know you've probably noticed there was a huge amount of space there. I will come on to that in a moment. And then for the button, the typography is 1 rem, which is equal to 16 pixel on the desktop, tablet, mobile. I'm fine with 1 rem. Now, in terms of anything extra I've done, when we get to the text, I went and added in a 30 margin on the top and bottom to move it away from the button and the button and the headline, and 120 from the right. Why have I added in 30 top and bottom? Well, if we go over to my child container, you will notice here my gaps are defaulted to 0. Sometimes I like it to be 0, and then I control how far they're going to be, because sometimes everything defaulting to 20 doesn't always look right. Sometimes it does, it's up to you. Anyway, my text editor, I've got some margin there. Now, when I get to the mobile, I definitely don't want to have 120 there. So I'm just going to zero that out, pop 30 back in there. And I'm now going to leave that as 0. So on the mobile, I don't want to have any margin gap over there, only on the desktop. And can you see that we have 20 on the left and right? That is coming from the parent container. That is why I like to add it in on the desktop. You do it on the desktop and it follows it through for all the other breakpoints. Right, back over here. I've flown through that as quick as possible just because I didn't want to spend too long just focusing on, this is the boring bit. It's what we do on the right side, which is going to be super interesting. Now, what we do need to do, though, is start defining the height of this. Now, this, even though we do have the padding, this is a 1140, okay? So the height of this, because I want it to be nice, I want everything to be geometrically like a square, even though we're going to have border radius. So 1140, okay, you got to work your head out with this. This is 1140 all the way across, but this area here, child 1, is 1140 divided by 2. That equals 570. So this is 570 across. To make a perfect square, I'm going to pop 570 in here. That is now a perfect square, and we have a perfect square on that side as well. Now let's go to child container number 2 inside the parent container. Make sure you've clicked on child 2. I'm going to go and drop in a container, click back on child 2, and then I'm going to go and drop in a grid. They are underneath one another at the moment. Even though we've set it as a row and a wrap, that's because of the sizing. So now let's go and do some more funky sizing with this. Let's go to our child container, make sure everything is zeroed out. Go to the container inside child 2, set that to be a full width, and then go and zero everything out. Go to your grid, make sure it is on full width again, and zero out. If you don't do full width, when you start to apply certain values, you always get a little bit extra or a little bit before, and it sometimes messes up the logic of any calculations you've been doing. So I don't want any of this extra bit of spacing anywhere. Now we're going to go to our container. We know that this is 570 across because it's half of 1140. But I now want this container to be half of that. So in a way, a quarter of what 1140 would have been. Now 570 divided by 2 is going to give you a value. But what you need to consider is I actually want a bit of gap. So in here, I want there to be some gap between my containers and grids in there. And the gap, if we go over to child number 2, is going to be 5. So I'm going to drop in a 5 there. For my column and row, I want to have a 5. You can see that 5 has appeared over here. That's all I want. I don't want 10 or anything like that. I'm okay with 5. So now 570 take away 5 is 565. I'm looking down here because I've written all my calculations. There you go, that's clear now, so you can see my values. So what we have is 565 now, divided by 2 is equal to 282.5. Now I'm going to pop into here 282.5. I'm going to drop 282.5 into here as well. Now let's sort out the grid. The first thing I'm going to do is change how many columns and rows we have. I'm only actually going to need a grid of 4. So because of the particular layout I'm going for. Now each one of these, now here's the thing where you may make a mistake, okay? You could easily go into the grid and go, well, it's 282.5, so I'll go and change this to be 282.5. Oh, look, it looks great. And then you go and make the minimum height do 282.5. If you look at our grid now, it's way taller than it needs to be. I need it to stop there. And the mistake is a pretty obvious one. It's the minimum height has been made to be 282, so each one of these is 282. Now, what we need to do is divide that by 2, but we need to take away another 5, because if we do not take away another 5, and I've gone and added it in here, if I just take away these values, sorry, let me put 0, can you see all of them are butted up against one another? If I go and add in a 5, there's now a bit of breathing space, and now I need to halve this by 2, but I need to do 282 minus 5, which is 277.5, divided by 2 is 138.75. So I'm going to drop that in there, and you can see the value now, 138.75. And can you see what's happened? We now have our kind of like grid. And here's where it just gets a little bit easy now. I'm going to duplicate this container and I'm going to pop it below the grid like that. In fact, no, I'm going to duplicate the grid. Sorry, we duplicate the grid. So what I now have is a container, a grid. I've got another grid and I've got another container. And they've all got that 5 pixel spacing in between them. You can see when I show over here, sometimes it doesn't show the grid lines until you click on it, but you can see there is this equal spacing. So if you think logically and mathematically, geometrically, you can get your layouts. Now let's start actually making this look really, really good. So into our very first container, I'm going to go and drop in an image. And I'm going to go for this one over here. These are all WebP images I've just got off Canva. You know, it's you could go to Pexels, Pixabay, anywhere like that. I'm going to set it to be a full resolution. I don't need to worry about the size of it. I mean, I can leave it as 100%. You know, that's entirely fine because it sits within this container. The important bit is going to be the border radius. Now, for now, I'm just going to set this to be 1,000 so I get the circle. Once I've done that, I will then rejig them. So I might then suddenly say, right, at the top, give me a 0 like that. So that what you get is you get that nice kind of like pattern effect. I don't even know what the proper word for it is, but you get that nice radius where you get a bit of a right angle going on there. That is what we're going to do over there. And then inside of here, I'm now going to drop in a spacer, and I'm going to show you a bit of a trick with how you can ensure when you do add a text editor, it looks really, really good. I've just got to remind myself into there, I was going to drop in some color. That's correct. So we're going to go and drop in a spacer into our very first grid item over here. And I'm going to make this grid item be, let me get this right, it's going to be 138.75. Because inside of there, the width and height is 138.75. Remember, we did the calculations there. I'm going to go to my advanced tab. I'm going to give this a background color. We will go with that red color there. And by the way, don't forget, you could do a gradient color if you want as well. I'm just keeping it really simple at the moment for what I'm doing. I'm going to go over now to my border and I'm going to give this a 1000 as well. I mean, 100 you can get away with because it's a small circle. I sometimes like to force it all to be 1000. Now into here, I'm going to add in a text editor. And this text editor is just going to say maximize, I'm going to pop the English, maximize ROI. Now, if I go into here and I start to centralize it like this, it's all okay. I'm now going to add in some CSS in a moment because I want that to be bang on in the center. Now, the first thing I am going to do, though, is just go and set the size of this to be 1 REM. In fact, 1 REM, I think we should go with 0.9 REM. No, 1 REM is better. We'll go with 1 REM on the desktop and it will pass that through for the tablet and the mobile. I'm going to make that be a 500. It will be a white font, but let me first go to my text editor, go to my advanced tab, go to the background color here, and I'm now going to give this a bit of background color, basically. I'm going to do something like that. By the way, you will have noticed my parent container is very much right at the top. You know, if you want to go in and, you know, add a bit of margin from the top, I will do just for the purpose of what we're doing here, so it's easier to see. Let's go back to our text editor. I've gone and given it a background color. Now, I am going to also go do a border as well, but can you see what happens to the text over there, right? And that does not look good at all, okay? Really looks awful. So what we're going to do is go down to custom CSS and we're going to drop in a bit of CSS. Select a display grid. I mean, in a way, it already was a grid, but you're having to say it again. Height 138.75 because that is the height of it. And then I've gone and added in this formula here. Now, don't get me to fully explain what this does, but if you try and do all of this within here, it does not work, okay? So you split it out with the selector greater than symbol multiplied by, and then you pop this in all here. If your screen is a different size, you would put in whatever is your relevant size here, right? However you've done your logical calculation. But hopefully that's going to make sense. Notice how that now sits in the center, but it's not properly in the center. So what you have to do is add in padding of 10. Don't ask me to explain why. but 10 is what works really well. I'm also just going to say give me about 30 from the left and 30 from the right. So what we get is that. Because I don't want it to be too close, but that is, you could almost argue it's more like a 15 actually. Sorry, it's 15, not 10. That my brain wasn't thinking right. You pop in your 15 padding of the top, and that now positions it in the center. What we're now going to do is just kind of start replicating what we're doing. I'm going to pick this image up, go over to the third grid item within the grid. I'm going to paste that in, and I'm now going to change the image. We'll go for something like that. We are going to change the border radii. Don't worry, okay? I will get onto that. I'm then going to copy this spacer and pop this in, and I will be changing the colors as well, so don't you worry about that. Can you just see how funky this is looking before we've even finished or completed it? So let's go and do a bit more now. I'm just going to now go through really snap quickly and change my border radii. And there you go, you can see what I've done now. In my child container number 1, I've actually changed it now to be justified to the top, and I've added in about 100 padding from the top. I've changed the color of my button to fit more with that pinky reddy color that we've got over there. And we now have a lovely blend. Now, one thing I will mention though, these images were from Canva, okay? All of these images have had a little bit Belvedere or whatever you pronounce it. Let me just move myself again out the way. I'm really sorry about that. Can you see it's added this filter? This is what the image looked like normally. And I've added in this tone, a little bit of that purpley reddish, just a little bit of there coming in. All of the images have had that applied. So when you see this here, it's not fighting with the color of what you have over here. You know, so if there was a bit of shade on their shirts, by adding in that little bit of tone, it fits in with the color there. And there you have a pretty funky hero banner. Why do I like this hero banner? You can change the wording. These are text editors inside of there, okay? So if I want to say now or whatever, you know, or you want to pop in, you know, like, you know, you could pop in whatever you want kind of thing. I mean, that looks CBDD. I don't know why I did that one. Maximize ROI, increase leads globally. And again, these are all images. So if you decide, hey, we're not going to show people anymore, we're going to show a dish, probably not the greatest thing because you can't do the full border radii, but you get the idea. So you could have yourself, maybe, pictures of websites. You're adding in some visual stimuli to the page. And yes, I know I've got tons of containers going on here, right? I mean, yeah, I get it, right? Look, parent, child 1 with all those items, child 2, and then we've got container, grid, container again. You know, ignore this bit there. That's just me doing something else separately. But there's a lot going on there. I get that. But you could, if you want, do this as an image. Everything there you could do is an image. But then you're going to have a bit of pain when you get to the mobile. You're going to have a different image. Then you might have different stuff going on. Because we haven't even addressed what happens in the mobile, and there is going to be a little bit of work here. The first thing you're going to have to obviously do is decide on how tall your container is going to be. Well, for container number 1, I'm just going to zero it out. I'm going to go over to my advanced tab. Again, I'm going to zero out, and I'm going to now just pop in some values like 40 and 40 from the bottom. Remember, if you pop this to be a 378, it is, let me just move myself to be over here. When you do 378, you can now see how it looks. And when you scroll down, everything looks okay. Look, we have the 20 over there from the parent container. It looks fine because you could argue, oh, there's a lot of dead space there, but is it really? You've added in color, we got text, we got an image. Rather than just having text, image, we're adding in a bit of stimuli. And I was very particular about my colors. So I wanted to make sure that I was looking at this as if I was working on a mobile. So what I didn't do is put red here and red there, or purple there and purple here. Because I know that when things start to stack, if you're not careful with your color, you would have got purple. So I wanted to kind of break it up a little bit like that. So I think this is a really cool, funky way of having a different looking hero banner, which I think works really, really well. I know I'm saying that, but I really like the way that looks. If you are part of the Elementor website course, you can download this as a template. So it's already pre-built. You then just go and rejig and change things around if you want and pop your things in, or you can build from scratch. But you got to be part of the Elementor website course. The link is in the video description. Hey, I'm Imran from Web Squadron. I hope you like, subscribe, share, and follow, and start to think a little bit differently about how to make your hero banners bounce.
Never break, always fight, never quit, do it right, play the game, win it life, have no shame, there's no time, feel the pain, live the grind, I could change, in my mind, pick a lane, commit and climb, the only way to win it life, I never miss that.